Hello friends and welcome back to the Unity Diaries. Very interesting episode. Let's start. Sister Wives fans are once again watching the Brown family story unfold in a way that feels almost impossible to believe. What began as a family built around the idea of plural marriage has gradually transformed into a complicated web of broken relationships, disagreements over property, painful estrangements, and questions about where the family goes from here. Recent discussions surrounding Kody Brown, Robyn Brown, Janelle Brown, Meri Brown, and Kody Brown have brought many of those old conflicts back into the spotlight. According to the storyline presented in this discussion, tensions have become especially intense around property once connected to the Brown family. The situation has also been described as involving legal orders and disputes over ownership. These claims should be understood as allegations and commentary surrounding the family rather than established facts unless confirmed by official court records. Still, the subject has captured the attention of Sister Wives viewers because property has repeatedly been one of the most emotional issues in the family's history. For years, the Brown family promoted the idea that love could be shared among multiple spouses while still maintaining a united family. But as the relationships changed, that vision became increasingly difficult to maintain. Meri, Janelle, and Kody eventually separated from Kody, leaving Robyn as his remaining wife. What once appeared to be a large interconnected household slowly became several separate lives, with the former sister wives building identities and futures outside of their marriages to Kody. One of the most important sources of tension has been Coyote Pass. The property represented an enormous dream for the family. When the Browns purchased the land in Arizona, the vision was to create a shared family compound where everyone could live close together. The land was supposed to symbolize unity and a future in which the family would continue growing together. Instead, Coyote Pass eventually became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. The property was purchased in 2018, and as the marriages began to deteriorate, questions about ownership became increasingly important. Kody eventually left the family structure, while Janelle and Meri remained connected to the property in different ways. As the years passed, viewers watched the family struggle with plans for development, finances, ownership arrangements, and the larger question of whether the original dream would ever become reality. Kody ultimately transferred her interest in the property to Kody, and later disagreements involving the remaining ownership interests continued to attract attention. The source material describes discussions about an uneven division of the property and complaints from Janelle and Meri about how their interests were being handled. Eventually, the storyline presented here says the property was divided more evenly before being sold. The reported sale of Coyote Pass for approximately $1.5 million marked an important turning point. Instead of continuing to represent an unfinished family dream, the land became another chapter that could finally be closed. The money from the sale was reportedly divided according to the relevant ownership interests, giving Janelle and Meri an opportunity to move forward without the property continuing to tie their finances to Kody. For viewers who have followed Sister Wives for years, that development carries symbolic weight. Coyote Pass was never simply a piece of land. It represented the future Kody once imagined for his entire family. Seeing it sold demonstrates just how dramatically that original vision has changed. At the same time, fans have continued discussing Kody and Robyn's spending and lifestyle. Online conversations have questioned how the couple appears to afford expensive outings and luxury purchases, while Kody has previously discussed financial difficulties and disagreements over family responsibilities. Some viewers have pointed to appearances in Las Vegas, expensive accessories, and Robyn's long-discussed interest in collecting American Girl dolls. These observations have fueled debate, although social media speculation should not automatically be treated as proof of wrongdoing. What is undeniable is that money has been a recurring source of tension in the Brown family story. The question of who contributed what, who benefited from family resources, and how property should be divided has remained one of the most emotionally charged subjects surrounding the show. The former Flagstaff home owned by Kody and Robyn has also attracted attention. According to the supplied transcript, the couple purchased the property for around $890,000 in 2019 and later sold it for approximately $1.775 million in 2024. The reported profit then became part of discussions about the couple's financial position and their ability to purchase another home. For Sister Wives viewers, these financial details are important because they exist alongside years of conversations about family finances. The Brown family was never simply dealing with one household budget. Their plural family structure meant that multiple homes, children, businesses, properties, and household needs had to be considered. As the family separated, those financial arrangements became even more complicated. But property and money are only part of the current conversation. Another major point of discussion has been Kody's behavior during the Sister Wives tell-all and one-on-one interviews. His confrontational interactions with host Sukanya Krishnan became a major topic among viewers. Rather than giving calm answers to difficult questions, Kody appeared increasingly frustrated with the direction of the conversation. The host's role was to ask about the difficult parts of his family history, including his relationships with his former wives and children. Those questions naturally touched sensitive subjects. Yet viewers noticed that Kody's frustration appeared to grow as the questioning continued. Some fans felt that the conversation became uncomfortable enough that Sukanya seemed visibly affected by his tone. Others argued that Kody was simply expressing years of frustration in a setting where he was finally being asked to confront difficult questions. Whatever interpretation viewers choose, the exchange became one of the most talked about moments surrounding the tell-all. Kody has spent years being questioned about the collapse of his plural marriage. At one point, he was publicly associated with 4 wives, and the entire premise of Sister Wives centered on how those relationships could coexist. Now, 3 of those marriages have ended, and Kody has repeatedly expressed anger, disappointment, and resentment about how the family broke apart. That creates a complicated dynamic during interviews. When Kody speaks about his past, he often focuses heavily on his own pain. His former wives, however, have their own versions of the same history. Janelle, Meri, and Christine have each discussed feeling emotionally neglected or pushed away in different ways. Their accounts do not always match Kody's interpretation, which is one reason the family's story remains so contentious. During the discussions surrounding the tell-all, Kody's anger reportedly escalated to the point where he attempted to shut down questioning. Viewers interpreted his behavior in very different ways. Some saw it as a defensive reaction from a man who felt constantly attacked. Others saw it as evidence that he was unwilling to take responsibility for the consequences of his decisions. One particular theme has become increasingly clear: the old family dynamic is gone. Kody once had to balance multiple marriages and relationships. Today, the family structure is dramatically different. Meri has established a life separate from Kody. Janelle has also moved forward independently. Christine has created a new chapter with David Woolley. Kody remains with Robyn, and their household has become the only remaining marriage within the original plural family arrangement. That change has forced Kody to confront a reality that he may never have expected when Sister Wives began. He is no longer managing a plural marriage. He is living in a monogamous relationship. Kody has openly discussed his changing feelings about plural marriage. In the source material, he is described as saying that he does not want to pursue another wife. Interestingly, his explanation is not simply that he is completely satisfied with his current marriage. Instead, he has talked about the stress, uncertainty, and complications that would come with beginning another relationship. That distinction has caused viewers to question what Kody really wants. Does he genuinely believe monogamy is the future he wants? Or is he simply exhausted by the emotional consequences of everything that happened with his previous marriages? Those questions become even more interesting when looking at Kody's relationship with Robyn. For years, Robyn was portrayed as the wife who shared the strongest emotional connection with Kody. Their relationship was frequently described as special, and the other wives eventually became increasingly aware of the difference in the attention and affection he appeared to give her. Meri has recently pushed back against the idea that she or any of the other women should have tried to become more like Robyn. Her position was simple: She is her own person. That statement may seem straightforward, but within the history of sister wives, it carries enormous meaning. The entire premise of plural marriage was supposed to involve different women sharing a husband while maintaining their individual identities. Yet, according to the discussion in the source material, Kody's comments about wanting his other wives to experience the same type of love he felt for Robyn created an uncomfortable implication that they should somehow become similar to her. Meri rejected that idea. She did not want to become Robyn. She wanted Kody to accept her as Meri. That distinction reflects a much larger problem within the family. The former wives did not necessarily want to compete with Robyn. They wanted to feel valued as individuals. Janelle has expressed a similar frustration. Looking back at the period after Robyn joined the family, she has suggested that Kody's relationships with the original wives changed significantly. She has questioned why he did not communicate openly about those changes at the time. That is an important point because relationships rarely collapse because of one argument. More often, problems accumulate slowly. Communication becomes weaker. Resentment grows. People stop asking difficult questions because they are afraid of the answers. Eventually, the relationship reaches a point where leaving feels easier than continuing. That appears to be the story many viewers see when they look at the collapse of the Brown marriages. Christine left first. Janelle followed. Meri eventually ended her relationship with Kody as well. And through all of those departures, Robyn remained. Kody's relationship with Robyn therefore became even more important, but that did not necessarily mean everything inside their marriage was perfect. The source material also discusses moments when Kody and Robyn appeared to struggle with each other. This is where the reality TV image becomes complicated. A couple can genuinely love one another while still having disagreements, frustrations, and unmet expectations. A relationship that survives does not automatically mean it is flawless. Kody and Robyn may care deeply about each other while still experiencing the normal conflicts that come with any long-term relationship. Fans have nevertheless questioned whether Kody's public presentation of their marriage always matches the reality behind closed doors. The source material also discusses Robyn's American Girl doll collection and the significant amount of money viewers have speculated may have been spent on the hobby. Those discussions have become part of a larger online conversation about Robyn's lifestyle and spending habits. Again, speculation should not be treated as verified financial evidence. But the subject has become popular because it connects with a larger frustration among some sister wives viewers, the perception that Robyn and Kody's household received more financial security and attention than the other households did. This perception has existed for years. During the family's time together, viewers frequently compared the living arrangements and resources available to different wives. When one household appeared to receive something another household did not, fans naturally began asking whether Kody was actually treating all of his wives equally. The COVID period intensified those questions. Kody implemented strict rules about contact between family members, and those rules created enormous conflict. The restrictions affected his relationships with several of his children and contributed to an already growing distance between him and some members of the family. What followed was not simply an argument about pandemic rules. It became a fight about loyalty. Some family members felt that Kody was demanding obedience rather than trying to understand their perspectives. Kody, meanwhile, felt that his rules were being ignored and that he was being disrespected. That conflict left wounds that never fully healed. One of the most painful examples was Kody's relationship with his son Garrison. Garrison Brown died in March 2024 at the age of 25. His death was a devastating tragedy for the entire family and deeply affected Janelle, who was his mother. The loss also forced the family to confront years of unresolved emotions. Because Garrison and Kody had been estranged before his death, the tragedy carried an especially painful dimension. There are no easy answers when a family loses someone under such heartbreaking circumstances. Arguments that once seemed important suddenly appear painfully small. Words that were left unsaid can become a permanent source of regret. The family later came together to remember Garrison and honor his life. Despite the fractures that existed between different members of the Brown family, the loss created a moment when many of them stood together. For Janelle, The grief was overwhelming. Christine's response was particularly emotional because of her long-standing friendship with Janelle. Their relationship had survived the collapse of their marriages to Kody, and their friendship had become stronger after leaving the plural family structure. During the period surrounding Garrison's funeral, Christine remained close to Janelle. Sometimes grief does not need a speech. Sometimes a person simply needs someone willing to sit beside them. That appears to be what Christine tried to provide. The source material describes Janelle experiencing sudden waves of sadness that could appear without warning. Christine, who had known Janelle for decades, understood that there was no perfect sentence that could remove that pain. Instead of trying to fix the situation, she allowed Janelle to grieve. That moment revealed something important about their friendship. For years, Sister Wives viewers watched Christine and Janelle navigate the same complicated family system. They experienced jealousy, disagreements, parenting challenges, financial concerns, and the difficulties of sharing one husband. Yet after leaving Kody, they discovered that their friendship could exist independently of that structure. Their bond became less about being sister wives and more about being two women who had shared decades of life together. The funeral period highlighted that connection. While the family was gathered in Wyoming, members of the family attempted to find small moments of normality in the middle of an extraordinarily painful time. There were conversations, family activities, and quiet moments where people could remember Garrison as more than the tragedy surrounding his death. David Woolley was also present as a source of support for Christine. His presence represented another major change in the Brown family story. Christine had once been married to Kody and deeply involved in the plural family system. Now she had a different partner, a different household, and a different understanding of what she wanted from her future. Her ability to support Janelle demonstrated that leaving the family structure did not mean abandoning the people she loved. In fact, it may have allowed some relationships to become healthier. This is one of the strongest themes running through the current Sister Wives storyline. The marriages ended, but not every relationship ended. Christine and Janelle remained close. The former sister wives continued raising and supporting their children. And each woman began building a life that was increasingly independent from Kody. Meanwhile, Kody and Robyn remained together. That contrast has become impossible for viewers to ignore. On one side are women who appear to be creating independent futures. On the other side is the couple who remained inside the original relationship structure. This has caused some fans to describe Kody and Robyn as outsiders to the broader Brown family. The term is emotionally loaded, but it reflects a reality viewers can observe. The family no longer operates as one unit. The original plural family household has effectively dissolved. The children are now adults in many cases, the former wives have separate lives, and Kody's relationship with several of his children remains complicated. The sale of Coyote Pass only reinforces that transition. Once the property was sold and the former wives received their respective financial interests, another major connection to the old family structure disappeared. For years, Coyote Pass kept everyone tied together financially. Now that the property is gone, the former wives have fewer reasons to remain connected to Kody beyond their shared children and decades of history. That may ultimately be one of the biggest changes in the entire Sister Wives story. Money can create obligations. Property can create obligations. Marriage can create obligations. But once those ties disappear, people have the freedom to decide which relationships they actually want to maintain. For Janelle and Meri, that may mean continuing forward without the financial complications that once surrounded Coyote Pass. For Christine, it means continuing to build a life with David. For Kody and Robyn, it means facing the reality that the large family structure they once promoted is no longer functioning in the same way. There is also another question that continues to follow Kody. What does he want his relationship with his children to look like? The source material describes a notable moment in which Kody spent time with his daughter Aspen after an 8-hour drive to visit her in Utah. The interaction was reportedly emotional because Aspen confronted him about their relationship and asked why he did not seem to like her. For Kody, this was an opportunity to respond differently. Rather than immediately becoming defensive, he acknowledged the pain involved and expressed love for his daughter. That may sound like a small moment, but after years of conflict, small moments can matter. Viewers have spent years watching Kody struggle to communicate with some of his children. His relationships with several adult children have become strained, and the distance has often been connected to conflicts involving the family, the pandemic, and disagreements about loyalty. So when Kody appeared to listen instead of argue, fans noticed. It raised the possibility that grief had changed him. Garrison's death may have forced Kody to confront the fragility of life and the consequences of unresolved family conflict. No single conversation can erase years of pain. No apology can automatically repair every broken relationship. But acknowledging someone's hurt can be the beginning of rebuilding trust. That is why the moment with Aspen attracted attention. It was not necessarily evidence that everything had been fixed. It was evidence that communication might still be possible. At the same time, the source material presents Robyn's reaction to Kody's attempts to reconnect with his children as another point of controversy. Some fans have interpreted her responses as evidence that she remains protective of Kody and skeptical of his other children's intentions. Whether those interpretations are fair is a matter of debate. Reality television only shows viewers selected conversations and edited scenes. It is therefore difficult to know exactly what happens away from the cameras. Nevertheless, the perception exists. And perception has played an enormous role in the sister wives story. For years, viewers have debated whether Robyn's influence contributed to the breakdown between Kody and his other wives and children. Her defenders argue that she has often been unfairly blamed for problems that existed long before she joined the family. Her critics believe Kody's relationship with her changed the family dynamic dramatically. The truth may be somewhere in between. Relationships are rarely destroyed by one person alone. Kody made his own decisions. The other wives made theirs. The children developed their own perspectives. And Robyn has her own role in the family. Blaming one person for everything may make for an easy storyline, but the Brown family is much more complicated than that. What is clear is that Kody's relationship with his original wives changed after Robyn entered the family. Janelle and Meri have both spoken about feeling emotionally distant from him, while Christine eventually reached a point where she no longer wanted to remain in a relationship where she felt unwanted. The departures changed everyone. Christine's decision to leave in 2021 was followed by Janelle's separation in 2022 and Meri's eventual breakup with Kody. By 2023, the plural marriage that had defined sister wives for more than a decade was effectively over. Kody and Robyn were left as the remaining married couple. That outcome is striking because the show originally centered on Kody's ability to maintain multiple marriages. Now the story is largely about what happened after those marriages ended. Kody has expressed bitterness about the collapse of his family. He has discussed regret over entering plural marriage and frustration over the emotional consequences of his relationships. He has also said that he does not want another wife. For some viewers, that sounds like a sign that he has finally accepted monogamy. For others, his comments suggest exhaustion rather than contentment. Perhaps Kody simply does not want to repeat the emotional chaos of the past. Perhaps he has finally realized that maintaining multiple relationships was more complicated than he once believed. Or perhaps he is genuinely happy with the life he has now. Only Kody and Robyn know what their private relationship looks like. What viewers can observe is that their lives have changed dramatically. They no longer have to coordinate multiple households. They no longer have to balance the competing needs of several marriages. They can focus on their own household and their children. But that freedom comes with another consequence. There is no longer a large family structure to hide behind. If Kody and Robyn have problems, they have to face them together. If Kody misses his former wives or children, he has to deal with that emotion without the plural marriage system providing a constant distraction. If Robyn feels pressure from the collapse of the family, she must navigate that reality within her own marriage. In that sense, the end of plural marriage may ultimately reveal more about Kody and Robyn's relationship than the years when they were surrounded by other wives ever could. Meanwhile, Janelle's story has become one of the most emotionally significant parts of the current sister wives narrative. Her life has been shaped by decades of marriage, motherhood, family responsibilities, and the eventual breakdown of the relationship she once believed would last forever. But her story is no longer defined only by Kody. She has demonstrated an increasing level of independence. The loss of Garrison remains an enormous part of her journey, and grief does not disappear simply because time passes. But she has continued moving forward while maintaining connections with the people who support her. Christine has been an important part of that support system. Their friendship is a reminder that relationships can survive even when the circumstances surrounding them completely change. They were once sister wives. Now they are friends who support each other through separate lives. That may actually be one of the most positive developments to emerge from the Brown family's difficult history. Meri's journey has also taken a different direction. For years, viewers watched her struggle with an increasingly distant marriage to Kody. Her eventual decision to move forward represented a major shift in her life. Her refusal to become like Robyn is particularly significant because it reflects a broader theme of self-identity. Meri does not need to compete with Robyn. Janelle does not need to compete with Robyn. Christine does not need to compete with Robyn. Each woman has her own personality, history, priorities, and future. That realization may have been one of the most important lessons of the entire Sister Wives experience. The Brown family entered the public eye with the belief that several marriages could coexist as one family. Years later, the surviving relationships are not necessarily the marriages viewers expected. The strongest bonds may now be friendships between former sister wives. The most important relationships may be between parents and children. And the most meaningful changes may be happening outside the original family structure altogether. Kody's relationship with his children remains one of the biggest unanswered questions. Can he rebuild those connections? Can he acknowledge the pain his children have expressed without turning every conversation into a debate over who is right? Can the family move beyond old arguments? And perhaps most importantly, can Kody learn to separate his relationships with his children from his conflicts with their mothers? Those questions are especially important because children should not have to choose sides in disputes between parents. The Brown children have grown up in an extraordinarily complicated family structure. Many of them have watched their parents separate, watched relationships deteriorate, and experienced the consequences of decisions made by adults. As they grow older, they now have the freedom to decide which relationships they want to maintain. That makes Kody's attempts to reconnect especially important. If he wants those relationships to improve, he may have to approach his children differently than he approached his former wives. Less defensiveness, less blame, more listening, more patience, and perhaps more willingness to acknowledge that their experiences are valid even when he remembers events differently. That is the challenge ahead. The Brown family cannot go back to the way things were. Coyote Pass is no longer the future family compound. The original marriages are over. The children have grown older. The family no longer gathers under one plural marriage structure. And the people who once shared a single vision now have separate visions for their lives. For Kody, the future may involve accepting that the family he built is not the family he once imagined. For Robyn, it may involve accepting that being Kody's remaining wife does not automatically mean she can preserve the old family structure. For Janelle, Meri, and Christine, the future appears increasingly independent. And for the children, the hope may simply be that the adults can eventually put aside enough of their differences to rebuild healthier relationships. That is what makes the latest Sister Wives discussions so compelling. The story is no longer simply about whether Kody can maintain plural marriage. That chapter has largely ended. Now the question is whether the people involved can heal after it. Kody's recent moments of vulnerability may represent a beginning. His willingness to acknowledge his daughter's pain, his reflections on his past, and his comments about not wanting to repeat the experience of pursuing additional wives suggest that he may finally be looking at his life differently. But change is not proven by one emotional conversation. It is proven through consistency. If Kody truly wants to rebuild relationships with his children, he will have to continue showing up. If he wants his former wives to stop viewing him through the lens of old conflicts, he may need to accept responsibility for his part in those conflicts. And if he wants viewers to understand his perspective, he will need to communicate without turning every difficult question into a personal attack. The same applies to everyone else in the family. Janelle, Meri, Christine, Robyn, and the children all have their own experiences and perspectives. There may never be one version of the Brown family story that everyone agrees on. But perhaps they do not need one. They can disagree about the past while still choosing healthier relationships in the future. That may be the real evolution of sister wives. What began as a television story about plural marriage has become a much larger story about identity, family, grief, independence, forgiveness, and the consequences of choices made over many years. And even though the Brown family's original dream did not survive in the way Kody once imagined, the individual people involved are still writing the next chapters of their lives. For Janelle, that next chapter includes continuing to navigate the devastating loss of her son while relying on the people who genuinely stand beside her. For Christine, it includes her marriage to David and the life she has created outside of her former relationship. For Meri, it includes defining herself on her own terms rather than trying to fit into someone else's expectations. For Robyn, it means navigating a marriage that has become the only remaining relationship from Kody's original plural family structure. And for Kody, perhaps the greatest challenge is learning that being the head of a family does not mean controlling every narrative. Sometimes leadership means listening. Sometimes love means admitting that someone else was hurt. And sometimes moving forward requires accepting that the past cannot be rebuilt. Sister Wives fans will undoubtedly continue debating the Brown family's decisions, especially when new conversations about property, finances, relationships, and family disagreements emerge. But beneath all the arguments is a much simpler human story. People changed. Relationships changed. Children grew up. Marriages ended. And a family that once believed it would remain together forever discovered that life does not always follow the plan. The most important question now is not whether the old Brown family can return. It cannot. The question is whether the people who remain can create something healthier from what is left. And perhaps the most hopeful sign is that some of them already have. Christine and Janelle have shown that a relationship can survive the end of a shared marriage. Meri has shown that leaving a painful relationship can become the beginning of rediscovering one's own identity. The children are increasingly creating lives of their own. And even Kody, despite the controversy surrounding him, has shown occasional moments suggesting that reflection may still be possible. The Brown family story is far from simple, and it is certainly not finished. But the era of one family living under one vision appears to be over. The end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe the channel.